Okay, I got a new segment for American Game Day called Debatable, where I really just talk about the college football playoff and the bowl games that are gonna that are on the way said and done. And I will say this: even though we got conference championship games today, the playoff is basically set. Here it is. We got Oregon at 1. Texas at 2, SMU at 3, Boise State at 4. Now, depending on the conference championship game, these teams will still move around. But I say a majority of these teams that are in the playoff right now will be in. All right, gonna break it down. All the teams. Oregon, win or lose, they're in. Texas, win or lose, they're in. SMU. That's going to be a big one because SMU is 8 on the ranking. They lose that, quite possibly. It's really a debate between Alabama and SMU to get the 11th spot. You know, the selection committee is going to put Alabama over SMU if they lose to Clemson, because Clemson will take that 3 spot. But I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. Boise State, they're in trouble. They're not locked, but they gotta beat UNLV. They beat UNLV, they're in. If UNLV beats them, UNLV takes that spot. And then let's look at the big matchups. Arizona State and Penn State. Not gonna be bad. I think they could do better. Tennessee and Ohio State, that one's gonna be a good one. Alabama, Notre Dame. That was going to be a good one as well. I still think Notre Dame would destroy them. Indiana, Georgia, I know they could do better. I know they can. And then Miami and Ole Miss is just left out of the playoffs. And in case you're wondering, South Carolina is behind Ole Miss as well. Now, is there any chance that Miami, Ole Miss, and South Carolina go to the playoffs? No. I don't think. So, yeah, their debate to go to the playoffs is over. But let's look at the rest of the rankings. Look at the top 25. We got Memphis, Army, and Syracuse are now new in the rankings. Colorado goes up a few spots. And Illinois, I forgot they were ranked. Yeah, they go up a few spots as well. Now, here's the big one. UNLV is the second highest group of 5 team right now. So the Mountain West has Boise State and UNLV both in their conference championship game, and they're the 2 highest. So whoever wins the Mountain West is in the playoff. Doesn't even matter about the American Conference game, Army versus Tulane, unless like Army's the Army is ranked, Tulane's not. So unless Army completely annihilates Tulane and like Boise State and UNLV is like a boring game and it really doesn't show any hype at all, I don't see any chance for the American Conference to be in the playoff. It's really between the winner of Boise State and UNLV. Missouri at 19, BYU 18, Clemson 17. And here's the big one. Iowa State is 16. Oh yeah, Clemson at 17 as well. Iowa State and Clemson both playing for their conference championship game today. Yeah, they're in the Power 4, and if they lose, they're out of the playoff. They win, they're in. Not bad, just win your game. But if you lose, you're out. But let's take a look at who's ahead of them, who's not playing in their conference. Okay, well, Arizona State's at 15. Now let's look at who's ahead of Arizona State. Keep in mind, Arizona State's 10-2. Look at all the teams ahead of them that have 9-3. Even Miami, I can see why Miami be ahead of Arizona State. But Miami's not playing their conference game. Arizona State is. Why in the world is South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Alabama ahead of Arizona State? Come on. So basically, I seriously think that even if Arizona State loses their conference game to Iowa State, I still think Arizona State should get that 11th seed and replace Alabama. If Arizona State wins, they get the 4th seed. If they lose, they get the 11th seed. I mean, this ranking is like completely biased for the SEC, mainly Alabama. Look at the top 10. Boise State 10. Indiana 9, SMU 8, Tennessee 7, Ohio State 6, Georgia 5, Notre Dame 4, Penn State 3, Texas 2, and number 1 is Oregon. Really, the top 5 is the only part of the rankings I agree with. Basically. Yeah, let's look at the SEC real quick. All right. These are the SEC teams that have a shot at going to the playoffs, but are on the bubble. These are the bubble SEC teams, basically. Now, I have this in alphabetical order, and I have their rankings right next to them. Now, for Alabama to go to the playoff, SMU would need to beat Clemson. Seems simple enough, because it's very likely if SMU loses that game, they might put SMU at 11 and Alabama's out of the playoff. I don't see that happening. I still think Alabama's in, nevertheless, because they're Alabama. Now, for Ole Miss, they need SMU to lose, basically, and Arizona State to win. No. Wait. Ole Miss needs SMU to win, because that takes Clemson out. And then Arizona State to win, because that takes Iowa State out. And they just hope that the selection committee thinks, oh, maybe Ole Miss is better than Alabama. That's just their only hope. And flip Ole Miss and Alabama, possibly. Probably not going to happen. And then for South Carolina, they need SMU to win, Arizona State to win, and UNLV to win, basically. Yeah, I need a little high hope, and just hope that maybe re-look at their resume and think, oh, maybe they are better than Ole Miss and Alabama. But I still think that's a lot to ask for. And then Tennessee, I think Tennessee's locked in. Something crazy would have to happen today for them to be left out of the playoff, but I think Tennessee is locked. Now, here's how I would order the SEC, those 4 teams. I would have Tennessee in, South Carolina, depending on the SMU, the ACC game, SMU and Clemson, and then Ole Miss and Alabama on the bubble. That's how I would have it. I really think South Carolina is the better team of the others. All right. Here is, let's take a look at the bracket prediction based on winner of conference games. So, if Georgia were to beat Texas, I mean, those two would basically flip spots. Seems simple enough. But let's say Texas beats Georgia. Georgia still, obviously, Texas still keeps the 2 spot. Texas still in the playoffs. They'll be a 10th seed, likely playing Ohio State. Seems simple enough. Now let's go to the ACC. Alright? The ACC, their bubble teams, Clemson and Miami. SMU. Now, SMU real quick. To me, I think they are locked. Even if they lose to Clemson, close. For SMU to be in the playoff, if they lose, they have to lose to Clemson close and have a reasonable argument to say, hey, we're better, even though we lost to Clemson, we lost to them close, and I think we still need to be in over Alabama. Now, for Clemson to be in, simple enough, beat SMU. For Miami, well, basically needs SMU to win, obviously, and possibly UNLV to win because knocking off Boise State, but it really doesn't matter because the winner of Mountain West is in. The loser is out. I doubt that if Boise State loses, they'll still keep them in. So let's look at the bracket. Clemson beat SMU. We all know that SMU wins, Clemson's down, and it's in. It's the same bracket. But if Clemson wins, that likely takes SMU out of the playoffs. I'm thinking ahead of the select committee, thinking, they'll put Alabama over SMU. I didn't fix that, because they have SMU at 12, or the first two out, followed by SMU and Miami, likely. But Clemson beat SMU. Clemson will get that 12th seed because with that loss, since Clemson is behind the two Big 12 teams, the winner of the Big 12 will get the 4th seed. As of right now, I have Arizona State, the highest one, so they will get that bye week. But Clemson wins. They'll likely be playing Penn State. Now on to the Big 12. Let's say that basically the winner of the Big 12 gets the 12th seed, unless UNLV beats Boise State. Basically, the only way for the Big 12 to get a first round bye is if either Boise State or SMU loses. That's the only way. And the winner of the Big 12 basically is in the playoff. The loser is out. So the winner of the Big 12 playing Penn State, basically. Yeah, that's basically it. I'll probably do more breaking down of it on the Slave Report podcast on Tuesday. But let's look at our rankings comparison. Mine versus the CFP. Alright, here it is. Obviously, top 4, the same. I have SMU slightly higher than they do. So does Indiana. Kind of in agreement with Georgia. But why in the world is Arizona State that low? How? I cannot believe this. I mean, they're 10-2. Yeah, they have the 2 losses, but they're trending up. They look great. I mean, if Arizona State had an SEC logo next to them instead of the Big 12, Arizona State would for sure be a top 10 team right now, not top 15. Same with Iowa State. Why in the world? You're playing for your conference and you're not in the top 10. Not one of them. At least have one in the top 10 from the Big 12. Even Clemson not getting that much respect. Although, I will say this. I do have Clemson at 20. I think Clemson is pretty reasonable. I really think Miami should be in the ACC tournament instead of Clemson, but that's just my opinion. Also, I think it should be Arizona State versus BYU in the Big 12 Championship. That's just my opinion as well. But let's look at my bracket. This is what I think the bracket should look like based off of this regular season. Again, Oregon, Texas, first round bye, SMU 3. But I have Arizona State. I'm getting the first round bye over Boise State. I really like the way Arizona State's been playing. And also, look at these matches. Boise State and Penn State. That's going to be a fun matchup. Ohio State and Georgia. That's going to be a fun matchup. Miami, Notre Dame. Who wouldn't want to see that? And then Tennessee and Indiana? Yeah. I mean, those are going to be great games. And I have Iowa State and Ole Miss just left out of the playoff. I mean, I still have Iowa State still having the shot at the playoffs. The bubble team. This is crazy. Anyway, yeah, but we already have some a couple bowl games set. Yeah, on December 14th, South Alabama versus Western Kentucky. And then December 24th is South Florida versus St. Joe State. All right. I think that's going to wrap up this part of the segment of DebataBOWL. All right, back to American Game Day.